Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We from Group 10 will present a journal with the title Video Games, an Innovative Way to Master English. Introduction. Video games have been around for more than 20 years, and it has become so advanced. It is practically a simulation rather than mere game. Firstly, video game graphics has become more realistic recently and it's helped with the immersion. Secondly, talent and work that have been put into the voice and the character of model also contribute to an interesting narration pulling players into the game world. Lastly, the control for video games has been refined, where someone can play without having to spare a thought on the controller when playing, which led them to be absorbed in the game. Using game-based approach from the early age of schooling helped students to gain the language not as a set of rules, but as the tool of communication. Video game is one of the way to be utilized in classroom. Not only it is effective, it is also favored by students as deductive in a qualitative research by Barr 2018, where he mentioned that video games help with their skill in communication, resourcefulness, and adaptability. Not only that, video game can be a catalyst for students' interaction and discussion with their peers. Literature review. Using video games for teaching language skill and vocabulary are very common in several studies. Udin Steva, 2015, held synthetic of 26 research to identify digital game based on second language learning. He mentioned that there are many positive effects of video games, especially in gaining new vocabulary. Some commercial games have benefit also in reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. Depending on gaming experience, learner gender, specific educational objective, and second language proficiency.
Methodology. The study is qualitative approach phenomenology study. To gain information through interview, respondents were invited through online polls. The invitation was posted on Facebook. The receiver called interview 6 respondents. The respondents come from various backgrounds. Respondent 1 was a college student in 7th semester majoring communication. Respondent 2 was a high school student in his 3 year. So were respondent 5 and respondent 6. Respondent 3 was interactive fiction author. Respondent 4 has just graduated from college. What is respondents share whether they love playing video game and how they learn English through video game. The interview was conducted using Discord server. Discord is an online chat and cultures like Skype. However, Discord has stable connection and is much more reliable than Skype. The interview itself were done in real time and recorded using Audacity. After that, the recorded interview were transcribed and encoded. The analyst was the interpret the meaning of the experience of each respondent about playing video games and their reflection about how they learn English. As the result, we can gain detailed description about the phenomenon then compare it with the previous research to enrich the analysis. Result and discussion. What do what do they like from video games? Respondent 1 answer with immersive gameplay and story-driven content. He elaborated more by adding, I always love role-playing. When I feel I'm the character, participate in their combat and shenanigans and building fictional relationship either for purely even or for pursuing let let game gear by maximize the affection. He also added also also their interaction to player that feels so real, like a person relying on us prior and acknowledge that we are useful in our own way. Respondent 2 also answered the same as respondent 1 by answering with stories of the game. Respondent 3 concur with two of the previous respondent and add the competitive nature behind the game, like Pokemon VGC for example. Respondent 4 played game for the story and the game mechanic, or in another word, gameplay. Respondent 5 mentioned, I like to be an OP character, basically a god that control console command. He, he people using a sniper rifle or be a pilot. Respondent 6 mentioned that video game could release stress. He also added, it's great to meet other people online, but if you play offline, it can still be entertaining. From this, we can conclude that most of these people played video game for their stories. This was appropriate considering most of video games text and dialogue come from the story. This can be quite an incentive because when someone is curious about something and try to understand it themselves, the information will be effectively stored in their memory. Not only that, video game can release stress. This is also true considering video game is great for entertainment purpose. It can make them relax. This is perfect for unconscious learning method. While it is not effective in one setting, from sheer quantity of time people play video game, it can build up on pair with people that learning English in class, maybe even more. Based on your experience, does video game help you practice your English? How so? Respondent 1 said, absolutely. It helps remember some difficult words and applying more direct conversation, especially fantasy-driven content. Respondent 2 mentioned, yes, it helps a lot. I can answer some question right because of the tense. For the example, like, where is my apple? Respondent 3 confirm this and elaborate it with English has been part of my life, and thanks to knowing a bit of English, I got into my current job and me lots of people in the forum. Imagine if I didn't know any English, my life would be completely different one, and not to mention I will be here right now. Respondent 4 agreed. Then 8, I learn more English word that's not come from study in school, from video games. Respondent 5 answered yes, video game helps me learning English from the reading, listening, and grammar. Since almost all of the offline games, including visual novel, RPG, and other games, including visual novel, have the call conversation and choosing which is the good option or bad option by the conversation. For RPG, we do follow the quest and then meeting the NPC and then kill him. Oh, sorry, and then talking about the quest. Respondent 6 said basically true. Learning English pronunciation, for example, there are 3 ways of say tangga in English: leader, star, and steps. Most people only know that English only consists of bad words, but there are much more than that. In conclusion, all respondents agree with it, albeit with different reasoning. What is your thought if video games are incorporated with English material? Respondent 1 welcome the idea and said that's the kind of English lecture I want. It is easier to understand, not by textbook, but real example. Respondent 2 elaborated more with people have their own ways of learning, like reading a text, listening someone conversation, and usually doing the same activity for a long time will make us bored, but games have their own ways to make things interesting. Respondent 3 has mixed direction in the subject matter and interesting idea if it makes to learn English fun and easy, then I am all for it. But then again, there are people who don't like video games, so it might depend on the person. Respondent 4 always me similar thing with the respondent 3 has told us. I agree with it since I already seen one in my university before. But I think not all school gonna accept that method. Some people, especially elders, only think game as games and just for fun purpose only. Respondent 5 disagree with the notion, however concur that it may work, but only if the game choice is appreciated to use. Respondent 6 lament the fact that video game has bad reputation in education and disagree with the notion.
Video games have been around for quite a while, from a game where you are playing a classic game like a Pong to full A grades that makes the game more challenging and existing. This challenge and existing might be used as media of learning. However, computational language teaching still has gaps for more innovative and fun way to learn languages. The reason gamers play video games are gameplay, story, competitive natures, interaction with other players, and releasing stress. Moreover, all participants agree that video games improve their English slightly, it can be concluded that video games can be applied to English class with some considerations. The result of this study were the subject played video games to entertain themselves through gameplay story-driven competitive development of the game, interaction with other players, and realizing stories. Okay, so all participants agree that video games helps much in improving their. Almost all participants considered that video games could be brought into English classes with some considerations. And games can motivate students to learn subjects because of three reasons. Basic information was given, and the first student can win the game. Learning content is related to this curricula, and multisensory engagement can support experiential learning. And some commercial games have benefits also in reading, speaking, and listening skills. Depending on gaming experience, learner gender-specific educational objectives and second language proficiency. Okay, that's so a brief explanation of our group. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm so sorry if we have mistake in these explanations. So finally, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.